We are now going to bring you the second installment of our series, Podcast of the Month, Pantsuit Politics. It's a political podcast hosted by two friends that tackle the ideological polarization of U.S. politics head-on, with the goal of navigating these difficult conversations that we've all had with grace and respect. Take a look.
So I remember in 2016, my dad tried to block me on Facebook.
I do remember this.
Yeah, he tried to do it through a text message.
Can you remind me what he said in the text?
I think he said, I'm just getting too upset, and I've just decided I think I'm going to block you on Facebook. So it was an announcement. He had not done it yet. And I said, no, I don't think we're going to do that. Let's talk about it. I understand that you're mad, but cutting off from each other is not the solution. I do think some of your opinions are ridiculous, but just your opinions, not you. There's a real difference for me.
Wow. So the hosts of Pantsuit Politics are here with us in studio, Sarah Stewart, Holland, and Beth Slivers. Thank you both for being here. This is such an important topic that I think most people, if they're being honest, have had to deal with within their own families or their own friend groups. So this is incredible. And I know listeners describe you two as America's political therapist. Sarah, what was your goal when you first started this? Was it just to bridge a divide, or what did you think you were doing when you started this?
I mean, when we started it, we just wanted to talk to each other. We hoped our moms might listen, but we really wanted to have the type of conversation that we weren't hearing anywhere else. Conversations where you could say, I don't know, or I've changed my mind on this. And we weren't seeing that, and we wanted to engage with each other, and then it just so happened that other people were interested in this type of conversation as well.
Yeah, and speaking of changing your mind, or at least evolving your mind, Beth, you started out the show, I love this, Sarah from the left, Beth from the right. But in 2019, you switched parties. Tell me about that.
When Sarah asked me to do the podcast with her, I had a little meeting with myself. I'm very introverted, but I said to myself, if we're going to do this, we have to be honest. There's no point in faking any aspect of it. And so I was a Republican my entire life because I really believe in local problem solving. As I saw the party shifting its focus from local problem solving to other issues where I was not aligned, I had to be honest with our listeners about where I was. And I was nervous about it because we had built this idea of Sarah from the left, Beth from the right, but then I started hearing from people who were on a very similar journey saying, thank you for saying this out loud and for holding that title a little more loosely and just being willing to approach issues with a real independent spirit.
I was going to say, are you Beth from the middle now?
Right. I live in Kentucky where we have closed primaries. So I'm a registered Democrat because I want to vote in primaries. That's important.
Right, and that is a big issue because in New York it's the same. If you're a registered independent, you cannot vote in the primaries, and that's a big part of the problem a lot of people would point to. All right, Sarah, you've said growing up in the South has deeply influenced you. What are some of the ways your Southern upbringing comes through in this podcast and in your ideals?
Well, we really treat our podcast like our home. This is the space we're welcoming people into. We don't bring guests on to have gotcha moments or embarrass them. We want people to hear conversations like they're hearing it in their living room. That includes our social media presence, how people engage in the comments. We want a space that invites connection, not conflict.
But do you get, I mean, it's pretty hard to have a conversation like this, even if your intention is to bring people together, to not have people throw some daggers your way.
It happens, especially when we have a higher level of exposure, but then our listeners come in and say, hey, we don't do that here. That maybe you haven't listened to the podcast, but this isn't what we're about in this community. It's pretty amazing to watch.
That is incredible because I just have to block and delete.
We do that sometimes too, let's be clear.
What has been the response from listeners overall? What do they want more of? What do they want less of? What are you hearing from them that has shaped your podcast?
The main thing that we hear from them is we just want you to keep showing up. We want you in our feeds twice a week. We would take more if you could because the issues they're navigating just keep coming. And so I think what everyone's realized is that it's the practice of continuing to do this, no matter what the issue is, being willing to talk about it, that really works. And it helps them have conversations in their own lives. We want to be a conversation starter.
And that's what I was going to ask you. So when people are, feel some agita, some nerves going into Thanksgiving dinner or just being with family when you know you come from different sides of the aisle or vastly different political beliefs, what are some of your tips? Do you offer those to people, like how you start a conversation, how you continue a conversation in a civil, non-judgmental way?
Well, we always say it's a long game. Beth always says, you don't have to leave the Thanksgiving table with draft legislation. No one's asking you for that, right? Like, you don't have to do that. And so if you say, I want to influence, not control, because when you try to control your family member or your friend, they feel that. If you want to continue to influence them, no, it won't be one conversation. And Beth always has exit strategies, too.
I think knowing how we're going to get out of the conversation is essential to us wanting to get into it, right? So if you can just say before everybody gets tired and worn out with each other.
Or has a couple glasses of wine.
That's right. I don't recommend that. You know, just, I'm so glad we talked about this. That's really interesting. You've given me a lot to think about. I'd love to talk about it again. What are you doing this weekend? Just having a prepared way to be done is really important.
And that's the practice of our podcast. We process it together. Our listeners process it with us. So they don't feel like they have to shove it all on their family members. It's the regular listening, the regular engaging that lowers the temperature.
Yeah. Do you take on specific topics and you know, what is the intention? Are you trying to figure out the right response or the correct way forward on some controversial issues? Give me a sense of how you handle that.
I don't think we're ever trying to find the right way because there's never just one right way. We're trying to find the strength in the diversity of opinion that's out there, the diversity of opinion that exists between the two of us and with our listeners. So I tell people it's a little bit like a key change. I don't want you to listen to adopt my opinion. You have your own melody and your own lyrics. I hope it feels a little different to you after our conversation.
And do you think that anyone in the halls of Congress is listening to your podcast, and what could they learn from you?
I do actually have a friend in the halls of Congress. But yeah, I would love that. And we've had conversations about it, and she says, like, there's a lot of this happening not behind the scenes when the cameras aren't on. When you work with people and you're around them every day, because it's this long conversation, we'd probably be a little bit surprised.
All right, and I'm curious because, you know, sometimes in our business we have people called consultants that come in and give us some advice. If you were to speak to members of the Senate and the House, what would you say to them?
I would say politics is mostly about priorities. We all have the same desires for our country. What's really hard about your business is that you have to prioritize those. Use that language with us. Tell us that's important too. This is what we can do first and well, so this is where we're going to start. And I think people can hear that.
Wow. Beth, Sarah, thank you very much for being on the show. We appreciate it, and you and what you're doing out there. Pantsuit Politics, by the way, is available everywhere you listen to podcasts, and they have a new book, Now What? How to Move Forward When We're Divided About Basically Everything. That is available for pre-order, and that is an amazing title.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.